Yeah.
Welcome back. Okay.
You ready, Sherry? Okay.
Council workshop meeting, Monday, July 1st, 2024, 6 p.m. Fair,
Here.
Briggs, Coulter,
Here.
Heidrich, Holtmeyer,
Here.
Packey,
Here.
Reed, Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will all the committee members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the meeting dated June 3rd, 2024? Fair,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Yes.
Packey,
Yes.
Wessels.
Aye.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Coulter to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes.
Presentations, commercial inspector.
Tim's working his way up here.
Good evening, council. Get the- Good evening. Some time ago, Blake actually reached out to me with the building department and said, hey, we need to talk this, dust this back off. This has been something that's been kicked around for quite a while, having a commercial inspector. And in speaking with Blake and Charles and Darren, we took it a little further, started digging a little deeper, and the need's a little bigger than I anticipated, actually. Talking with those guys, and I can let Blake speak to the numbers and such. But it's getting to the point where they don't have the capacity within what they're doing right now to be able to take on additional. In addition to that, a lot of the commercial plan review for fire protection is being done by me. And so that's all being done by non-staff, if you will. So that's another piece of this that we're looking to help correct, because part of the challenge with that is if I'm doing a plan review and I'm not coordinating with the inspector, there's a disconnect there, so it can be quite troublesome for the owner. It's getting connected. Next one, please.
Hold on, give me a sec.
You might have to just, are you hitting the arrow?
Is it the top button? Nope. Hold on.
Technology in this thing does not work. This is,
And it's, I don't know why it's not coming on.
you saw.
Exactly what I would have done too.
Yeah, we know.
That's what I'm telling you.
It's froze up?
It's been all day.
Really?
I think it's me. I need to get my energy.
I can go to the top and jump in here.
Moving now?
Hold on, I'm gonna try.
Sure, go ahead, drive.
There you go.
Works.
They've got it in their packets, though.
Yeah.
Tim.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the other thing, while he's doing that, Sarah, if you want to try to pull it up on the web.
I can't get the mouse to do anything.
Hand me your HDMI cable. Which cable? Just throw it here. We're good.
Oh, yeah, right.
on me because I couldn't play the national anthem
Here.
last night.
You couldn't shut off the Beatles either.
Okay, hold on, I think I might have it now.
Here's your cable, I'm good.
You got your fire stick?
Here's your script. This one, that one.
Something that works.
Dead batteries, you gotta be kidding me. It's locked up, it's the system here. There it goes.
Okay, there we go.
Is this thing?
But it's still thinking, so.
It's still thinking. So why we need it?
I didn't touch a thing.
That's fine.
I did not touch a thing.
You couldn't even make this up.
It can't.
Hurry.
Hurry.
All right, so what's the need? Why do we need this? So one is the big thing is the safety of the firefighters and general public. One of the things that came to light a while back is the ability to find utilities. We had some issues with that on a couple different calls. And another thing that really came to light is we had a fire at a industrial facility, and when we went in, the amount of hazardous materials that were located in close proximity to where that fire was, we had no idea. And so we're putting ourselves at a lot of risk, as well as not knowing that putting water sometimes on things that's burning can create a lot more issues. Assist business owners. We're not here to really be a hammer. This is to be an assistance. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. We started putting software together and found out we have a lot more commercial businesses than we thought we did. Insurance services, I'll get into that, how ISO affects it. And lastly, the long-range plan we did in 2022. Some recommendations out of there, if you would, Miss Sarah.
Hey.
So when we look at fire prevention used to be the big thing. It was the push, but really what it is now is community risk reduction. So when we look at our community, what can we do to reduce risk? And the number one up there on the top is education. That's the thing that's going to get us the most bang for the buck. And so we start where there. The next thing is we engineer out problems, and we do that through codes, quite frankly. And we make buildings better utilizing the codes. So when there's remodeling, when there's new construction, we can make buildings better and make them safer for people. The enforcement's towards the bottom, but there's also economic initiatives, incentives to doing this as well. Cutting cost. When we look at the Voss Brink Industrial Park, for example, and I don't know, Heidman Industrial, I guess is the correct name for that one. When we look at that whole complex is sprinkled. From an insurance services grading perspective, that doesn't count. None of those buildings count towards our ISO building counts because they have fire sprinklers in them. So there are some economic initiatives and incentives to doing this as well. And finally, the other piece of this is the emergency response piece of that. Go ahead, Sarah. So firefighters and safety to the general public, over 98% of all the automatic alarms are false alarms. That puts a lot of folks at risk. It puts our folks going to calls at risk, putting people in the general public to risk. There's also a cost associated with it. So every time we make a response, we fire up trucks, we roll them down the street, there's cost associated with just overall wear and tear. One of the bigger things from an operational perspective is complacency. When we've had problem facilities in the past, and what happens is it's the little boy cried wolf syndrome. The 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th alarm in a 6-month period, it's just another false alarm. We're not going to go to that one. It's another false alarm. We're not going to go to that one. And unfortunately, it's the one that does happen. It becomes a big deal because it's one of those 2%ers. Identification of building challenges. What this really came through was when one of the things that brought it to light is Christmas a couple of years ago when we had a huge frost and cold snap and things thawed out the week of Christmas. And so we were having buildings with freeze-ups and we couldn't find water shutoffs. And so that was a problem that we had and something that became very apparent as a gap that we needed to fill. as well as where's the fire protection equipment? Where is the equipment located? We recently ran an automatic alarm on Front Street, and I would never have guessed that the fire alarm control panel would have been on the second floor in a closet with a washing machine. That would have been the last place I would have thought to look, but that's where it ended up being. So there's challenges with the location, particularly retrofitting of old buildings on these buildings. And finally, hazardous materials. Where are they? How much? What are the exact hazards that are out there? When we look at the code that was recently adopted, and we've been having some internal discussions with staff, there is an occupancy type of permitting fee, and you've had it in your code for quite some time. There's 55 different occupancy permits that are actually required. And it goes all the way from a lumber yard to hazardous materials to tar kettles to adaptive printing, using lasers to build up material using plastic adaptive laser printing, basically. All of those are operational permits. And there's a lot of them that are basically built into the system now. But there are others that there's additional cost associated with it. So when you start looking at those specific types of occupancies, and let's pick on hazardous materials because it's the easiest, there's a lot of work that has to go into that. How much is it? Where is it located? How do we get it documented? How do we make sure that non-compatibles are not being stored with each other? And following up with that building owner. So there's a lot of work that goes into that, which means there's manpower that has to go into that to validate all of that. So that's one of the big ones here, as well as this need for this position. The picture in there I want to point out, the big stop sign, that is something local to us. We've developed that a few years back because we had so many contractors that were causing false alarms. We started putting big red stop signs on all the fire alarm equipment, sprinkler equipment. And so we've done that, say, hey, stop, call 390-1050, our Washington Communications, follow the ordinance and notify us locally so we stop running false alarms. Can I show you it's working? Somewhat, because they also get a bigger fee for this one, but it's starting to work. Do we still get false alarms from contractors? Absolutely. But is it making an improvement? I can say for sure yes. Next one, please. Assist business owners. This is an actual picture of a fire alarm control panel in Washington's jurisdiction. It's just short of a mice nest of wire. That was the actual installation and paper hanging inside of that thing. So the code requires these various things to be put in: firewalls, fire alarms, fire sprinkler systems, other types of protective systems that need to be put in a building, life safety pieces and elements, warning lights and emergency lighting, exit lighting, things to get people out. The unfortunate thing is one of two things happen. One, a somewhat irreputable contractor will come in and not even give the building owner the information they need. So the code says they're supposed to train that building owner on that system. The other part that happens is the memory lapses over time. So if the building owner did not get the information because the installer put it in, said there's your alarm, have a nice day, cash the check, and goes on his way, or over time, you just forget. And so our building owners do not work with these things day in and day out. And so the unfortunate thing is they don't know what the business owners don't know what they're getting, what they're paying for. So we've made a very conscientious effort to work with various business owners to help alleviate problems. So if they're continuing to have false alarms or they're starting to have troubles with their system, we can be a resource that they can use to help support the stuff that they have to have. The other piece of this is looking for backflow preventers. So we can help the water department identify where all the backflow preventers are. Are those the backflow preventers being tested? And the other piece that I've told some business owners, the code requires you to put this stuff in. You have bought and paid for this equipment. Are you getting it maintained the way the code says and what you're paying for to get it done? And if not, challenge your contractor that you're hiring to do this. And if they're not doing the work that they're supposed to be doing, find a new contractor to do the work for you. And so we've been working with business owners to do just that. So we make recommendations of 2 or 3 different contractors that if they're having trouble with one, we can definitely get them steered into a different direction to help them with that. Next one, please. Lots of commercial buildings. It's becoming too difficult just to remember. The picture that's in there right there is Christmas Day 2022. That was our 7th frozen pipe in the course of about a 24-hour period. That is in that's in the art studio downtown on Oak and Main. When I got there, water was shooting out of the side of the building. There was about 7 inches of water where those guys are standing right there. It just so happened I was in there a couple weeks prior and knew where the sprinkler riser was by sheer dumb accident. If I wouldn't have been there and had that interaction with that owner a couple weeks prior, we would have found the riser. It would just taken us a little bit because all the sprinkler pipes were hidden by the drop ceiling. So we would not have found the riser quite as quickly. So what we're trying to do, and what I'm trying to say here is, you know, when we have an incident like this, it's important that we are able to mitigate these hazards as quickly as we can, whether it's a fire or it's lost business interruption, lost business due to failure in a system, whether it's a plumbing system, electrical system, whatever it may be. How can we help them reduce loss? Because ultimately that's what we do. We're much more than a fire department. This isn't fire related, but we're helping them because they had a loss, trying to do what we can with tricks of the trade that we know how to move that water out of the building. And the other piece of it is with 900 commercial buildings, it's not the city it once was. We may not know everybody. We want to build relationships, but we don't want to do that 2 a.m. in their front of their building. It's better to do that Monday through Friday, have that conversation, and establish a rapport. ISO. So ISO, we talked about it a lot in the past. We're currently in ISO 3 in the city. From a residential perspective, it doesn't matter. I'll be quite honest with you. Anything 4 and below is all the same. As you get lower in that, it becomes an identification of quality of service as well, graded against your peers, as well as commercial insurance premium setting. It's a part of setting the premium. There's a lot that goes into the insurance calculation, but the lower the number, the better it is, and we're currently at 3, which means out of 100 points, we have more than 70 for the ISO 3. 9 points of that 100 is associated to training, and out of that training, that includes pre-planning and building familiarization. The insurance industry realizes that it's valuable, there's a lot of value in understanding and knowing buildings. And so the better we know buildings, the better we understand them, the better we can respond to them. Presently, out of those 9 points, we're getting fewer than 4, slightly less than 4. And part of that, or a big piece of that actually, is due to our inability or our lack of getting into these buildings on an annual basis and meeting with these owners and establishing these relationships. So there's another incentive with the ISO grading. Sarah, please. Long-range study, we did a study in 2022 with ESCI. Did an outstanding job providing a report and outlining things that needed to be improved on. And what they do is they're looking at it from a best practices standpoint. So they're looking at it from a codes perspective, but they're also looking at it, what is the best practices that as a fire department we should be doing? And this is one of the key elements they identified was a community risk reduction program that included pre-planning as part of that program. At that time, one of the challenges we had was software. And so we have now got that software problem eliminated. We've replaced the software and have a software that's very usable and is actually very pre-plan friendly and business friendly to use for us. So we've got the basic foundational piece that we need to get started. We have that as far as the backroom stuff. We have all of that created and put into place. Next one, please, Sarah. So it's the dreaded fire inspection. My God, the fire department's here. They want to do inspection. They're going to write me up. That's not what this is about. It's about taking the code that's adopted and enforcing it as it's written. This isn't about being a hassle or a headache to a business owner. This is about forging a relationship and helping them. So when they have a question on one of their systems, rather than let it become a problem, we can be proactive with it. The other piece of it is life safety. We want to make sure that people get in, people can get out. There have been lawsuits out there to code officials. The Station nightclub fire in West Warwick, Rhode Island in 2001, the building inspector was sued because of the number of deaths in that fire. They were there 2 weeks prior to the event, and after that there were lawsuits. They were sued as part of that. In fact, there have also been building officials that have been charged criminally in other parts of the United States. One of the big concerns we always have is life safety. So if you've paid to get in, you've paid to get out, is what one chief has said before. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, that we have to ensure that the buildings for our residents and our visitors are safe. So that's one of the big pieces of this. This isn't something to be an enforcement hammer, but it's a tool to be out there to be used to ensure that we're complying with the minimum code requirements that we have adopted to ensure that those buildings are safe for the occupants and their contents. In the end, it helps with ensuring they have the way to get out, and ultimately, it reduces city liability. Another, to finalize, kind of wrap up, additional benefits, it gives the building and engineering department some support with an additional position. The ideal candidate would have some engineering background, which will allow them to do pre-planning, allow them to do some engineering, allow them to do code review, plan review, answer those questions. It would be more timely. I have a pretty full plate, so when plans get sent to me, it's a great system. The city's using SmartGov right now through the building department. It's a fantastic system. It sends emails. I regularly have Blake, hey, I need you to get this plan review completed. And so it's a more timely way to get it done when somebody can actually focus on the work. We'd have somebody in-house for those be the subject matter expert for this type of questions. Adding value. I'm all about adding value wherever we can. I was talking to Sherry a little bit before the meeting about business licensing. This is some value back to the business owners for the licensing. You pay a license, we come and ensure that your building is meeting the minimum requirements to ensure safety of that facility. Helps manage that operational permitting. Like I mentioned, there's 50-some operational permits in the code now. It's been adopted since 2000, at least 2009, maybe 2003. We need to actually get a footing on that and get a little better grasp on that and ensure we do a much better program there. There are ordinances above and beyond what's in the code that's in the city ordinances, and those ordinances aren't necessarily always being looked at as well either. And so it's an assurance that the city ordinances are in harmony with what's adopted in the code. In some cases, we have conflicts. When we have conflicts, that creates confusion for our customers. And so when we have that, then we have to work through that. And it'd be much better to be proactive than reacting when somebody comes in and says, well, the code says this, your code says that, which one are we actually supposed to follow? How are we supposed to do that? It's much better to be proactive with that and keep things clean. Charles and company and Kevin did a great job recently going through the hydrant piece of it, reworking the hydrant portion of it. Those are things proactively we should have been doing some time ago and done that in harmony with the code, but we were delayed about 5 or 6 months. The ideal position would have some sort of safety background as well, so they could also support the overall city worker safety from an occupational safety perspective, whether it's using eye protection, ear protection, what those things take to help keep the city workers as safe as we can, operating in the conditions that they have. And also ultimately, this is best practice. This is something that we honestly should have been doing. I spoke to Chief Halmick earlier this evening. I ran into him and I told him what we were doing tonight, and he says, it's about time you get up there and talk about it. It's recognized in his tenure as something that we should have done, and quite frankly, it's one of the things as chief that I need to make sure gets done before my tenure is complete. This is something that truly we need as the community is growing the way it is. As I mentioned earlier, it's too many buildings just to know what they are, and too much for us to try to keep in mind, especially as we rotate through people. It's tough to bring everybody up to speed when you have 900 different occupancies. I think that's it there, sir. Questions?
So just to add on to what Tim has raised, or whatever, this subject has come up, this is probably closer to 20 years, Tim, actually, because it first started with the residential occupancy program that the city started back in, I think, 2005. So at that time, Chief Halmick had requested that, once we get past the hurdle of doing residential, start looking at doing commercial occupancies as the code implies, like Tim alluded to earlier. The problem that we've had, and I'll be candid with you, is the fact that you've got some of the businesses push back after a while. There's some of them that expect it. That, you don't have a problem with nursing homes, schools, those, because they're getting inspections already done by the state, et cetera. It's those ones that sometimes it's the industries sometimes that don't want to go ahead and do it. We've had pushback from them. We had we were starting to do those or looked at doing those. That was when Tom was here, and I'm trying to remember if that was 4 years ago, pre-COVID, or when.
Closer to 6.
6 years ago. Time flies. So we've looked at it. So this isn't new by any means. The city's been looking at this over and over. I think one of the things that Tim has shed light on the fact of it's hard for him to go ahead. We need somebody to go ahead and review plans. We shouldn't be relying upon a volunteer to go ahead and be reviewing building plans. And that's probably just as big a piece of the equation as anything. I've told Tim and Blake about, because I know that Blake needs a little bit more support with the building inspections that we've had going on, or just the number of permits that we've been issuing, that we would take a look at it in this year's budget. And we are going to go, good segue, Tammy has just started, today was day one or whatever, and so we're going to be setting up meetings with our department heads to go through their budgets, see what we can do. There's a lot, just like every year, we try to accomplish a lot with the budget and try to see what we can go ahead and do. This is certainly one of them that we would like to focus on, and this, if we are able to go ahead and add a position, this would probably be it this year. So I thank Tim for putting the stuff together and shedding a little bit more light on it than what we've talked about in the past. So certainly is something that we need to go ahead and take a look at. But I will warn you that there will be, it's going to be an educational process for the businesses, the owners, because there is some pushback from them when you go ahead and put this in place. Like Tim said, the dreaded fire inspection.
We have some wins in our pocket that we hope to pull out and show folks. One of them, we went to Target Corporate. Our guys, I could blindfold a crew. There was a specific crew that we could blindfold, and they could get to Target's roof in the rain, because we went every time it rained. We went to Target's roof, RTU number 8. And those guys could tell you to this day where RTU number 8 is on Target's roof. Through working with Target Corporate, we got that worked on. We're working with Lowe's right now. There are other more local businesses that we've worked with that are success stories as well, that we can utilize as well, because again, we don't want to be the dreaded hammer come out. We want to use that education piece and be a partner with these businesses.
Yeah, I just, I think if we want to continue to support and have a volunteer fire department that's worked to get us an ISO rating of 3, I think this is it's going to be an important piece of the puzzle eventually, because if you want to keep those volunteers and keep them, you got to keep them safe just like all the rest of your employees. And this is part of it.
And truthfully, about 20 to 23% of all the calls we run are automatic alarms. So if you look at that over 900 calls, 180 calls, out of that, 4 were legitimate actual alarms. The rest of them were all unnecessary. And so we try to work with the frequent flyers and talk with those folks as much as we can. And ultimately, the false alarm fee does not really get their attention, honestly. It's I think it's 50, 75, 100, I think is where we're at right now. I don't remember exactly where the ordinance is, but that really doesn't grab anybody's attention. I'll be frank with you, we have a lot of very conscientious businesses. They're usually very apologetic of the false alarm, and many of them work very diligently to get it fixed. But there are some struggles occasionally, but we work with them as best we can. But the idea is that's the one type of alarm that we have. I can't control how people drive and crash into things and each other, but we can work to engineer out problems on these alarm systems predominantly.
After reading through this presentation this weekend, it's just, you ask yourself, how have we gotten away without this already? You know what I mean? It's been, like you said, for so long looking into it, and I know it's the dreaded inspection, and it's the budget issue. I get that. But when you start talking, I wouldn't have guessed we have 900 businesses in this town. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot in itself for one person to go to anyway. Or even on a 2 or 3 year rotation or whatever it may be. So, I just said to myself, I'm like, I can't believe we don't already have this in place.
Yeah, one of the things the volunteers do, so we've had a couple shopping complexes that have been particularly bad with keys, where the management company does a really great job managing key systems, but they can't control their tenants yanking their locks out and putting others in. When you change a lock out, by ordinance, you're supposed to give us a key. If we can't get in and it's alarm in that building, we have tools to pull locks we can get through without doing damage, but we'd rather have the key in the lockbox. We've actually sent volunteer crews out, and they actually check lock boxes to see if the Knox keys that are in the boxes work. Because about once every 18 months, we run through a couple different shopping centers just so that we're not having to do that, because we don't want to damage doors if we don't have to.
So part of this, Tim, is if we go forward with this, then it's actually documentation where if you get a phone call at Target, it's going to be documented in through a chief, through your database that knows this is where the sprinkler system shut off is, this is where those things are, and then eventually have a database of every business in Washington to have that. So when you do go on a call, you're known.
You're there.
I mean, you don't go on every single one. Someone else goes and, Justin goes, but it's going to be available to that and then available to those. And therein lies the safety of the firefighters for more so than anything when that does happen. So there's a lot of levels to it, I guess, is what I'm saying and how we do it.
Lot of layers to this onion.
Right. It's not just an inspection, but it's also, it's a documentation and. Yeah.
Programmatically, it's a much bigger thing it's not just an inspection. There's a lot more programmatically to this where it's documentation from a pre-plan perspective. It's ensuring that there's some life safety piece of it, but it's also sharing that information internally. Putting all the I worked in a fire protection district. We rushed to build pre-plan for 1,100 commercial occupancies in West St. Louis County. We threw it all in a binder and threw it on the shelf, and when the grader came by, we gave them, there's our pre-plans. Check, you get the points. It doesn't do any good at 2 o'clock in the morning if it's not in the hands of the guys that need it. And so that's the important thing is if you're gonna go through the work, where's the value going through the work if you're not getting in the hands of those that need it? Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Report of department heads, Parks Department, Community Assistance Program Agreement, Lions Lake.
Evening, Council. In front of you is an agreement to the Missouri Department of Conservation Department to enter Lions Lake into a cap agreement. There is no money attached to this agreement. It's purely a benefit for the citizens and the city. Couple things, kind of history on cap agreements. The boat ramp or boat launch at Riverfront Park was built through a cap agreement with the Conservation Department back in '89. And I think the first boat courtesy dock also was part of that. That agreement since has expired. It was a 25-year agreement. And then also I found out working through this has been about a 2-year process of getting to this point because of rollover and retirements and things like that with the fishery department of MDC. But working with them, I had to supply a number of different documents to them proving that the city owned the lake and improvements that we've done to the lake over time. And luckily, Jerry, still have a lot of Jerry's files, and there was a lot of good stuff in there. But the lake, actually, when Jerry was here, they were kind of operating under a cap agreement already, just there was nothing on paper. The Conservation Department was stocking the lake regularly, they were monitoring it, doing the fish surveys, things like that, but there was no actual written agreement, signed agreement by the city. So you're kind of probably wondering what specifically does this get the city? And there's a number of things. Essentially, it will, in the future, help out like through a cost share or grant when we have to do some improvements to the lake, probably like on the south side of South Lakeshore Drive. We're going to have to sooner rather than later do some improvements there to prevent washing out. But kind of a short list of things that they provide or will provide for the city is fish management. So they'll come and shock the lake if we have issues with geese, which we do. They can help us out with recommending different vegetation to plant, things like that. It enrolls us into the hatchery program, so we get the free fish stocking based on the needs when they come and shock the lake. What they find, the type of fish that are in there, they'll determine what fish we need, and then what fish we may need to get rid of if that's an option or something we need to do. They'll help with ADA access, so if we build anything new out there, we have to per the agreement, we have to conform to the ADA standards, so it'd have to be built towards ADA standards, which we already do in the park system anyways. But they would provide some assistance there to help with ADA access. It'll also, through cost share or grants, help with parking lots, walkways, potential pavilions out there if we want to do anything different. They can help us out with that. Puts us on, puts the MDC, the conservation agents. I know they don't do regular patrols out there, but they are out there. I heard recently they were out there and issued some tickets for no license. But this will put them on a regular patrol of the lake, a regular stop of the lake. And then one of the other things they could do, I saw this done in Columbia, Missouri over this winter when I was up there in January. They have a really nice lake in the middle of their town, Stevens Lake maybe. And it was frozen over. I was up there right after that cold snap where it got down to minus 10 or 15. And they were sinking, the conservation department went out and sank, or they were getting ready to sink a bunch of Christmas trees for fish habitat out there. And so they had put all the trees out there and everything like that. So kind of what we have to do, we have to keep doing basically what we're doing, keep the lake up to expectations. It has to be free. Like I said, we have to do, if we build anything new, it has to be to ADA standards. And then we have to give MDC recognition to partnership. So there would be a sign, MDC would supply a sign out there. We would put that up and then recognize them on any marketing and different things that we do throughout the year. Questions?
Wayne, is that, one of the city responsibilities listed was providing area maintenance. Is that pretty much what we're doing?
Yeah, that's what we do now, yeah.
Yeah.
They just they want to make sure that if they're investing money and state dollars, that we're not going to let it fall to, if they didn't know our past history, or if we didn't have any history with them, which we do, they want to make sure they're not wasting the citizens' tax dollars.
So these responsibilities that are listed, none of them are new to
Nothing
you?
new, yeah.
Okay.
It seems like when we looked at it at Park Board, a lot of that was parking and getting there.
Yeah.
If you want to stock the lake, make sure people can get there to fish. But
Yeah.
obviously, things are pretty well taken care of to get in there and park.
And they did, like I said, it's been going on for like 2 years now, at least 2 years. But they did, I walked with them part of the time. They came out and inspected the lake, particularly the dam area. They did the fish survey, at least, I think they did 2 fish surveys now, one the last 2 years. And so they had to have theirs, and they had to present it, because there's only 114 of these agreements around the state. And so they had to present it to their, basically city council, their boards, and it had to be approved through them. And so I believe the next closest place that has one of these agreements is Union. And so I think there was a little bit of concern that, we're so close to Union that, there's already a cap agreement there. But I kind of plowed my way through that and we got them past that, so.
Good.
Take a motion to send it to council.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Bear to send it on. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Wayne.
We do have a couple of items for executive session. We can go ahead and get those in before the 7 o'clock meeting.
Executive session, public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, or real estate matters pursuant to section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Packey?
Yes.
Reed? Oops, sorry. Wessels?
Aye.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
You bet.